Democrats are looking at all this and the coalition they built to try to win an election and failed miserably and saying, well, where did we fail? Jen Psaki says, hey, we brought on all these right-wingers. We brought on Liz Cheney. We brought on Never Trumpers, and that's just not a winning coalition.
There were many headwinds here. There is sexism. There's racism. All of that is true. But I also think there is a real question I hope people start looking at about who people are listening to. In my view, there was an over-listening to and an over-lifting up of people who left Trump, not people who left the Democratic Party. The people who left the Democratic Party are the people who are going to, win in the future. The people who left Trump, the Never Trumpers, who have important voices and that is not the winning coalition. And I think that is a takeaway.
You know what I'm going to say? Jen Psaki has a point. I think a lot of Democrats, including her, wanted to believe that there was this huge, contingency of Never Trumpers. And it wasn't true. Most Republicans, 95% of them were with Trump the whole time. But they saw Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, and they wrapped their arms around them. And this was a huge mistake because war versus peace was on the ballot, whether the polls were talking about it or not. It was an undercurrent. On the right, people were sick of the stupid wars and the neocons that were putting us in those wars. And there were a lot of young men that didn't want what that lady right there, Liz Cheney, was selling. And they embraced Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. And I think that was a boon for Donald Trump. He was like, great, you can have her. We got RFK. That's the art of the deal, by the way, that trade, RFK and Tulsi for Dick and Liz Cheney.
I value independent thought, so I'm not talking about independent thought when I say this, but this idea of Never Trumpism has been one of the most failed movements in American political history.
It competes with BLM. Yeah,
it's close. Right there with BLM, like the Lincoln Project and BLM, some of the most biggest failures in American political history. And now, as you can hear from Jen Psaki, they're basically being ostracized by the team they attempted to adopt, and that's Democrats. And so that entire wing of what one point was Republicans, then was Democrats, is a land without a home. I mean, where does Liz Cheney go from here? Where is Liz Cheney's home?
Well, it's just like, but it's also, to your point, the neocon side of things, like, where is Nikki Haley's home?
Right, same thing.
People were clamoring, oh, Nikki Haley needs to endorse, he needs to use her. And he's like, I don't need Nikki Haley, I'm going to win without her. So I do think that whole interventionist wing is without a home, and for good reason, because of the chaos that it wrought on both sides.
Such a good point. They said, you need Nikki Haley to win women. Guess what? Donald Trump won white women without Nikki Haley. And you know why? Part of it was Maha, by the way. There was this idea that women only vote on abortion and they all want, reproductive freedom. There were a lot of pro-life women, but there were also women who on their daily lives, they deal with food and feeding their families, and they love the message from Make America Healthy Again and the chronic disease that they see overtaking, this country. So Donald Trump was hitting different points. And by the way, delicious to see Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney being blamed for the loss. Although I think it's an unfair total blame on them.
There's a lot of blame going around.
There's a lot to go around.
Interesting to watch Jen Psaki say, well, it was actually racism and misogyny, of course, up front. That's the way they're
So there's been a quadruple down on that, Pete, this week.
Big time.
They've even discussions that Latino men are racist and black men are misogynist. So they're going to quadruple down on what got them a loss in this election. And that is according to Stephen A. Smith of ESPN, who was this week on the Will Cain Show talking about all this culture war and identity politics is how you ended up where you are, Democrats.
I acknowledged we got a new president. He romped her, and American people have spoken. You can say what you want, but this country has said we went too far left. Enough's enough. We got to stop this nonsense. It's about our pocketbooks, and it's about safety, period. And if you don't like it, get over it. The majority of American people said, look, it's the economy, stupid. It's immigration. It's crime in the streets. And it's such a strong tilt to the progressive left where we're talking about transgender issues and culture wars and identity politics and all of this stuff. We're sick of all of that. Even though I didn't vote for him, I'm not as taken aback and feeling like nothing but gloom and doom and the world is coming to an end because the person that I voted for didn't win.
It's not misogyny to care about putting food on the table. I mean, I was really insulted as an American. What they said about Latino men and black men, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, these are men going, I care about putting food on the... It's really hard to be a provider. And being a provider is what gives men their self-esteem, which gives them their dignity. And it was hard to do it under this economy because everything was so expensive. Do you know 80% of Hispanics felt like it was hard. They said they worried about putting food on the table. 80% of them. You're a misogynist because you care about that. It was so insulting. The way they've responded to this has been absolutely terrible.
Something to pay attention to here, because Stephen A. Smith is talking about the culture aspect of how Democrats are pushing all this politically correct social justice garbage. Watch when Trump says we're ending transgenderism in the military. Watch when Trump says no more transgenders in women's sports. What does the left do? Do they give in and say, you know what, you're right, we went too far? Or do they double down and say, no, those are our brothers and sisters in the trans community who have to defend it and take to the streets over trans? Right. It's in some ways a trap for them. The right thing to do for Trump, but which way do they go? That still remains to be seen. They may double down.
Well, I asked Stephen A., did not a lot of this, crazy wokeism start back when you and I were together on ESPN and had these debates, and asked him for some self-reflection about the debates from 2018. Also asked him, by the way, if you had a late night show on ABC, would you cry like Jimmy Kimmel? And he said unequivocally, no, I'm not crying.
But what did he say when you said, what did he say? What was his response to your first question?
We had a deeper conversation, but he acknowledged a little bit that it did start then.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.